Greetings and welcome back to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who, and it is so great to finally be back as me, as the curator. I don't know what happened these last couple months. I mean, we had the Master taking over, we had a Sontaran clone of me running the show, but thankfully, I'm back here, the curator, the original, you might say, the one, the only, and the best. And another person who was back, I don't know how he survived with the Master imitation of me or whatever else controlled the show while I was gone, but Snarkman is still here. How are you doing, sir?
They felt sorry for me, to tell you the truth. It's like, he's so pitiful. Why even bother? Why even bother? I'll take it.
I mean, when you need to survive, am I right?
That's right.
And thankfully, we can get back now to one of my favorite segments of the show, the birthday segment. I haven't done this in a while. And, well, because it took me such a long time to get my show back, I have missed last week. So we're now doing all of this week and all of last week. So we are counting down from the 23rd of April all the way to the 29th, and then from the 30th all the way to the 6th.
Buckle up. There's a
if
few.
I'm being honest, it's actually a good thing because somehow, even though we're doing 2 weeks now, somehow in between those 2 weeks are about enough people to fill out our usual quota. I honestly don't know how that happened. It was like apparently there's not a lot of people born in between those 2 weeks. But we're gonna start with that anyway. And of course, the first person we're starting with on the 25th of April is someone I actually got to talk about on the last episode before I went MIA for the past 2 months. Cyril Neary. He of course played two major important characters in Doctor Who spin-offs. He played the shopkeeper on the Sarah Jane Adventures in 2 episodes, Lost in Time and Sky, and he played a different character, or maybe he's the same character. It's never been explicitly explained, but he was one of the chairmen of the board in The Lost, the final episode of the spin-off show Class, which I am now saddened we'll never get to see where his character went. It's often remarked that he's some kind of incarnation of the Corsair, which I know a lot of people would love that. But both times the show got canceled before we could learn anything about the guy. So that's annoying. And as the old meme goes, if I had a nickel for every time, if I had $1 for every time this guy was in a failed Doctor Who spinoff, I'd have $2, which isn't a lot.
Pretty good. Yeah, that's all right.
But it's weird that it happened twice.
No.
Okay, so we got a couple of people on the 27th of April, and we're gonna speed past the first one just to avoid any unnecessary comments from anyone on this side. On the 27th, Jenna Coleman, and also Russell T. Davies, who of course is the showrunner.
Wait a minute. Didn't we skip over someone real quick?
Russell T. Davies, the showrunner who brought back Doctor Who in 2005, and of course he is currently the showrunner for the current incarnation of the show. He was showrunner for 4 seasons with Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant, and now he's continuing on the legacy with another David Tennant and of course Ncuti Gatwa as the 15th Doctor. And also on the 27th, we have Mr. Joseph Milson, who played the character of Alan Jackson in the Sarah Jane Adventures. He was Maria Jackson's father in the first season, and of course he returned for a couple episodes in a later season. And we're still on the 27th. Apparently, a lot of people were born that day. But We have Mr. Kevin McNally, who played a bunch of roles in Doctor Who, both on TV show and on Big Finish. From, get this, he played a character in The Twin Dilemma, which was Colin Baker's debut as the Sixth Doctor. And then he appeared in Jodie Whittaker's final season as Professor Eustachius Jericho in The Flux, in 3 episodes of The Flux. So, like, the ratio between the two characters this guy played on the TV show is pretty interesting. So, on the 29th, we have Anita Dobson.
Oh.
Yep, she's Mrs. Flood.
She's also Mrs. somebody else.
Who?
She's Mrs. Brian May.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I did not know that. Well, good for her. Wow, but yeah. So apparently she appeared in the two-parter Blood of the Daleks, which I believe you've listened to. It's the debut of Lucy Miller from the Eighth Doctor.
Yeah.
Yep. But of course, she's now currently playing Mrs. Flood on the Church of Ruby Road, the mysterious character we know nothing about. But it's an interesting bit. She's also credited on an upcoming episode called Space Babies.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: is she's not credited as Mrs. Flood. She's credited as TBA. So we still don't know who her character is on that episode. She could believe.
I already mentioned who I thought it was.
Really? Who?
I think it's Ruby. I think she's Ruby.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a nice theory. It's a long list of interesting theories. But you know what? I don't really think it matters because we're gonna know that anyway at some point. So well,
it's starting soon.
Yep. I mean, this month. Hence, that is the topic for this month. And on the 1st of May 1st,
sure,
we have the one and only Mr. Sacha Dhawan, who, of course, played Waris Hussein in the biopic about the show, An Adventure in Space and Time, and was later recast as the Master for the Jodie Whittaker era of the show. And interestingly enough, also on May 1st, the lovely Miss Joanna Lumley, who, of course, played a parody version of the 13th Doctor in the iconic Doctor Who and the Curse of Fatal Death parody episode. Have you seen that one, Snark, yet?
No, still haven't. I just know her from AbFab.
Okay. Because another person who played a version of the Doctor on that spoof parody episode was also in this week, was born on May 5th, and it is, of course, Mr. Richard E. Grant.
Sure.
Yeah, of course, he played a parody version of the 10th Doctor, as well as a animated sort of Elseworlds version of the Doctor in the Scream of the Shalka, which was supposed to be a reboot of the show before Eccleston came along. Right. And then, of course, he appeared in Doctor Who proper as Dr. Simeon in the Matt Smith era, who, of course, then was taken over by the Great Intelligence. On also May 5th, we have the woman without whom a big part of the show would not be around, and probably without her, I probably wouldn't even have become a fan of the show. Ooh. The one, the only, Miss Delia Derbyshire, who, of course, is the composer who arranged the Doctor Who music, the Doctor Who title sequence music from all the way back in 1963, and she has her name, get this, written on no less than 534 episodes of the show, from the William Hartnell era all the way till the late Tom Baker era. Obviously,
a trailblazer too. You don't think of many theremins and stuff like that before you hear the Doctor Who theme. So, good job for her.
So, for clarification, I said late. I mean, Tom Baker is not is Tom Baker still with us?
Yeah.
I meant late in his run as the Doctor. That's what I was going for. And on the May 5th as well, we have Mr. Terry Walsh, who primarily was a stuntman. He was a stuntman and a stunt double for two Doctors, John Pertwee and Tom Baker, on a lot of episodes. But for the most part, the guy just has so many credits as stunt performers from episodes ranging from all the way in the William Hartnell era to like Sixth Doctor and stuff, and on stage stuff. The guy did a lot. He was a fight arranger on so many episodes. Like the guy's been around.
It's an unsung hero. He's an unsung hero brought to light by you, curator. Good job.
Yep. And finally, on this long 2-week journey, on May 7th, we have Mr. Valentine Dial, who of course played the Black Guardian in Mordwin Undead, Terminus Enlightenment, and obviously his debut in the Armageddon Factor. But I mean, he was a pretty big villain back in the day. That sadly, both the White Guardian and the Black Guardian, they've kind of been forgotten on the TV show. They did an interesting run with them on Big Finish, but I mean, they were referenced in the Giggle. But from that one brief reference, it doesn't really look like we're going to see them again on the show anytime soon. But hey, you never know. You never know. And right. So for the lovely and long list of people we had today, which we got to spend enough time and talk about every single one of them,
especially one of them, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe so thankfully we got to talk about all of them. But so thank you all. We quite literally could not do this show without you. So let's get on to the main topic. Am I right now? This is the time.
What's that?
I said let's get on to the main topic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about first episodes and stuff like that. I was just wondering if you wanted to maybe talk about Jenna Coleman a little more. I was waiting for that. Maybe.
No, I mean we talked about her enough. more than she deserved.
Oh, brother.
But so this month, Doctor Who is coming back. Doctor Who is returning. Of course, is gonna have the season premiere immediately after the Eurovision finals, which could be great for most people. Sucks to me because that means I'm just gonna have to stay awake even later than I thought I would, and there's work in the morning, so I don't know how I'm gonna manage that. But we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, so can't wait for Eurovision and can't wait for the season premiere of Doctor Who. But that really got me into thinking about, hey, why don't we just spend an entire month just talking about Doctor Who season premieres? And well, that's what we're doing. So of course we are going to start off with the one that started it all. An unearthly child, sometimes referred to as 100,000 BC. I think either way goes, doesn't really matter. Is the story itself is what matters. And how would I let you have seen this, I believe. So why don't I let you talk about it before I share my thoughts on it, because my thoughts are pretty long.
Well, as far as introducing everyone to the Doctor, I don't know if they introduce everyone to the Doctor all that well in it. Maybe towards more of the companions and stuff like that. His granddaughter, and then the teachers and stuff like that. For some reason, names are escaping me. It's been a long week and stuff like that.
Ian and Barbara.
Yeah, Ian and Barbara. Yeah, and I don't know. It's a fine episode. He seems like he's rather angry, if I remember right, in that first episode. He just doesn't seem like that. They just didn't know who that character was quite yet, but thankfully they stuck around with it. And of course, it had an unfortunate debut date and stuff like that too. So as long as you take away, from that or whatever, if you don't take away from that, it's a good episode. It's one of my like that first few episodes are some of my favorite from Hartnell.
Yeah. So my belief on this episode is it is an underrated masterpiece.
Right.
And I say that because it's not, one of the great episodes of all time, but the reason I say it's an underrated masterpiece, an underappreciated masterpiece, is because if this episode does not work, the whole show does not work. The whole thing just falls apart. And yes, it starts off with the uh, it's the gold standard for Doctor Who openers, and it set the standard for what Doctor Who had later become. I mean, just the idea that you don't start with the Doctor. The Doctor doesn't even show up until like halfway through the first part of the 4-part serial. You
Yeah.
start with the companions. You start in the junkyard. You see the TARDIS. You see the police box, and there's some strange noise coming from it. You don't know what to expect just yet, and then it transitions into the school. You see the school teachers; they're the first major characters. You see the first major characters that get speaking lines. You move on to the granddaughter, as you mentioned, Susan, and like there's some there's interesting dialogue there. First of all, just the conversation between Ian and Barbara in that classroom, the chemistry lab, of just like they're discussing a character you haven't even seen yet,
Hmm.
setting you up to this understanding that something's off about this kid, something's off about this little girl who seems to know more than she should on certain matters, but not others. And that right there prepares you for when uh, you encounter this character, and they gave her a history book. She starts reading the book, and he's like, "That's not how it happened." And then there's that scene in the car where they're waiting for her, and there's all these flashbacks to certain stuff that she said or did. They they enter the place, they find the mysterious police box, and then the Doctor shows up. So like this,
Right.
and you've been hearing about the Doctor, this mysterious grandfather who's also a doctor. You've been hearing about him the entire episode. So just to set up to meeting the Doctor. And of course, when he shows up, he's being his usual Doctor self. What's the first thing he does? He lies, because that's who the Doctor is. He he lies. He's trying to be aloof. He's playing it off as though he doesn't know who. He's never heard of Susan. He doesn't know why these two school teachers are even in this junkyard until the TARDIS opens, and then bam, you step inside the TARDIS, this huge, massive room inside of this tiny police box, and
Hmm.
then that's when the wheels start to get in motion. That's like you were not you were they were so far from what anyone was expecting when seeing it for the first time, and then you learn that it's actually a time space machine. Then they go back to the future. Then they meet Caveman. And by the way, everything I just described, that's all from the first episode. I mean, that's just like
Yeah.
all from the first part. The rest of it, it kind of becomes a regular Doctor Who story. There's Caveman, there's some political intrigue, if you can call it
Well,
political.
for the caveman, yeah, caveman
Political
politics. There's some caveman.
caveman politics, yeah, right. But then, like, in between that, there's these little moments of like, okay, so this caveman saved them from a tiger potentially, and they stop and treat him. They help him. They heal him, and the Doctor tries to murder him straight up. Like he grabs a stone, he wants to bash his head in, and Ian stops him. And that has been often cited as one of the main reasons why the Doctor. I mean, at first, like right off the bat, this is if you started watching from the modern series and you went back to the classic series, this ain't the Doctor you're used to. This ain't your regular. This ain't your David Tennant, Matt Smith Doctor. This is a completely different character almost. Like
Yep.
this guy would straight up murder the guy that saved him just to get away from him. So like, yeah, clearly he's not the same Doctor you know, but that's the beauty of it because he grows into that character over the course of this particular incarnation. So like, I love that one of my favorite parts about the first Doctor is that he's so wildly different by the end of his run than when he started in this episode, of course. And then of course you learn the uh, back then there was this idea that um, this was intended to be a show for kids, so the kids need to learn stuff, and of course that's why they had so many historical stuff and
Yeah.
a lot of the early Hartnell era episodes were like there's no sonic screwdriver, obviously there's no magic way to get out of things. The characters needed to work with their minds and work out scenarios and how to get out of the situation that they found themselves in. So there's a lot of that, and of course they run to the TARDIS, and then there's the cliffhanger of like they land on a planet where they check the radiation. The radiation seems fine, and then the meter goes all the way to the danger and starts beeping, and that's how the first serial ends. So yeah, like I said, I think this is an underrated masterpiece, specifically because of the first part. Because the first part is the one that sets everything up, and then it just devolves into a regular Doctor Who episode. You see the difference between the Doctor you might be familiar with from the modern series. If you're watching this for the first time, I mean that's how many people started with their Doctor Who journey. I don't know how they could have trusted this character to begin with.
Right.
They probably would have watched it more mainly for Ian and Barbara's sake. But yeah, so it's not the best setup, not the best introduction for the character of the Doctor, but that's really the beauty of it because it starts off with a not so great introduction to the main character, and yet the main character is the one you're essentially staying for. Like you start. Here's an interesting contrast. Here's an interesting way to describe it. You start watching it for the companions because okay, they're the characters they're introduced first. They're the more likable characters, the more relatable characters. They are the eyes and ears of the audience into this wild, crazy world of science fiction, time travel, and aliens. You start watching the show for the companions, but you keep watching the show for the Doctor. And that is, I think, is the best breakdown of the first Hartnell era that I can give, particularly starting from this episode onward. Any notes you want to add to the long-winded?
No, but yeah, for sure. Like if you look at that episode, if you look at an unearthly child and then say Rose, you wouldn't even think it's the same show, except for the TARDIS.
But see, here's the thing about Rose is that just like this episode, Rose's first episode, it starts with Rose. You don't meet the Doctor until like later and to like a couple minutes into the episode. It starts from Rose. The companions have always been the eyes and ears of the audience. Yeah. The introduction to this wild sci-fi world. And that's where it started. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's how George Lucas got the idea of starting A New Hope from the perspective of the two droids,
right?
Of R2 and 3PO. So, yeah, it's very interesting way to build your narrative. But by the time that the first season ended and the second season started, you can kind of tell that William Hartnell is feeling a lot more comfortable in the role of the Doctor when it's time for Planet of Giants. Now, couple things before we actually talk about the episode itself. It was supposed to be a part of the previous season. It was supposed to be part of season 1. I don't know why. I don't know what happened there exactly, but it was kind of pushed off, and it kind of became in the first episode of season 2. So like season 2 was
like too many episodes maybe in that first season. Isn't there like like 24 is it 24 or 32 episodes in the first season?
I think it's 32, but I mean it's 8
Right.
serials. So
Yeah.
technically, the serial wise, it's the shortest of the 3.5 seasons that Hartnell
Yeah.
did. Season 3, of course, is the longest, mainly because of Dalek Master Plan, which was a 12-parter. But so season 2 was kind of supposed to start off with the Daleks' invasion of Earth, and I guess maybe they felt like starting the season with a Dalek 7-parter was a bit too much, so they decided to put Planet of Giants, which I believe was originally supposed to be a 4-parter, and again something happened with this episode, and it ended up being a 3-parter, which is a rarity. I believe it's one of the rare few classic era 3-parters. I think in the Sixth Doctor era they might have had other 3-parters, but that was mainly because the episodes were 45 minutes at the time. So I don't know why. There's a lot of weird stuff that happened with this episode specifically. But hey, it's the Planet of Giants.
Sure.
So the TARDIS doors just open mid-flight. The TARDIS crew are exposed to whatever's outside the TARDIS at the time, and when they land, they believe they're on a planet of giants. They find these giant ants, giant worms, giant bees.
Yeah.
Then it takes after a while they notice they realize that no, it's not that they landed on a planet of giants. They landed on planet Earth in the 60s, where they were trying to get to in the first place, except they're tiny now. They're minuscule. They're the size of ants.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of help stop a conspiracy with the pesticide that's killing insects that are necessary for plant growth and plant development. And they kind of help, without being noticed at all, they kind of help solve a murder case. But yeah, that's it for the little break that I can give. Did you watch this episode, by the way?
Is this the one with the pesticides? The one guy's been DDTing them or something like that?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. Like
yeah. I think I've seen. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen this one for sure.
See, the thing, the ant that you see in this picture and all the other insects they mentioned, they're all dead when they find them. So that's how the whole subplot of the pesticide thing comes into play.
Yeah, I have trouble remembering. I remember little bits and pieces of it.
No, that's fine. I mean, the pesticide is on these tiny grains. Barbara accidentally touches one of them and she gets poisoned, and she's kind of her life is threatened until the doctor takes them back in his ship and gets them all to the proper size, and that's how she gets healed, because it's ridiculous. Her body goes back to regular size, but the poison stays tiny, and her body is able to expel it.
Perfect.
Weird, but okay. Okay, so season 3, easily the longest of the Hartnell era seasons, and frankly, the most inconsistent of the William Hartnell seasons.
Right.
Particularly because Galaxy 4 is our season opener. So right now, I was kind of hoping we could avoid this, but well, we now have a missing episode. Obviously, they started all the way back in season 1, but this is the first of 2 episodes that are missing that we are going to talk about. So Galaxy 4, we're finally done with Barbara and Ian, who, in favor of, shall we say, a lesser duo. I love Vicky, but I mean, it's freaking Steven Taylor. Oh boy. So they land on a dying world, a desolate world, surrounded by these tiny robots that Vicky decides to name Chumblies. They get captured by these by a race of beautiful women called the Draven. These beautiful warrior Amazon women uh, who tell them that the planet is about to die and that they're fighting these evil, ugly creatures called the Rills. Turns out that they were the beautiful women were lying. That the beautiful women are the bad guys, and the Rills are actually the benevolent good guys who are trying to save them. And
Isn't
because
that always the way?
yeah, that's always the Doctor Who way of the subversion of expectations. The the beautiful women are the bad guys, and the ugly alien creatures are actually the good guys. That's how usually goes with Doctor Who. And of course, as you'd expect from an episode featuring Steven gets captured by these women and he's held hostage, and he vainly tries to escape to know which uh, ends up doing nothing because he's an idiot. I can sit here all day talking about how much I hate this character, but we don't even have all that all day. So the entire episode itself is missing, with the exception of a few interesting scenes that, like, I believe, like, at the time there was like a fan of the show on a fan visit, and he took a lot of recordings of some of the scenes being filmed himself, and those scenes were used in the loose cannon reconstruction. So, like, get the regular reconstruction method of static image with the audio and some context dialogue at the bottom, and then when they're inside the Draven ship, it goes back to regular video like when they filmed the episode, which is mostly taken from the one fan that filmed the whole thing being filmed. Of course, we don't really have to worry about that anymore because it kind of got the animated treatment. They made an animated episode of it. I didn't watch it yet. I haven't got a chance. I haven't got around to that. So for my most recent rewatch, I watched the one that I just mentioned. But either way, I am not a fan of this episode. Like, it's a rarity for me because I love most of the William Hartnell era episodes. I just do not like this episode for a lot of reasons. I suppose the fact that it's missing a missing episode is a contributing factor. I suppose the biggest contributing factor is, well, Steven. But I don't know what it is. It's just I'm not the biggest fan of the villains, the Draven and their leader Maga. I like the Rills, but I love the Chumleys. But I don't know. This episode just doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Did you catch this one?
Nope. No, I hadn't seen this one at all. Good. At least not that I remember.
So I mean, if you do give it a chance, maybe try and watch the animated version.
I'll probably end up seeing the animated version.
Yeah, maybe you'll get a better kick out of it than me. But yes, and unfortunately, this trend continues with the next season opener, season premiere, The Smugglers. It's another fully missing episode with even less surviving clips from it. Interestingly enough, like it's a weird trend that kept happening with the Doctor Who missing episodes from the black and white era. Is that because censorship on violence is a big thing in Australia? When the BBC sent the original reels with the episodes to ABC Australia, ABC, the Australian broadcast company, because of the restrictions on violence, they had to remove a lot of violent scenes from the episodes, cut it down, and yet somehow, decades later, once those episodes eventually became missing, those violent scenes that the Australian broadcast company removed from those reels is the only footage that survives from the missing episodes that the BBC threw out. So in the loose cannon reconstructions, you get the regular static image with the audio and context dialogue, and when there's the violent scenes happen, they just seamlessly fit into the plot of the episode, and that's the only actual video clip that you can see from it. That's how we saw a lot of the violence from the episode. Now, the episode itself, it's a pirate episode. These pirates take over this one bay. It's kind of the first trip with new companions Ben and Polly after the war machines. It's boring. I don't like it. I don't like this episode. What can I say? This episode never did it for me. It never worked for me. Suppose again, I'm probably judging it off the fact that it's missing, but I think if this episode wasn't missing, I wouldn't be the biggest fan of it. And here's the odd thing for me is that I've heard that it's one of the next few episodes to get the animated treatment. I think it might have already come out already, or maybe it's been being worked on right now. And I just remember when I heard about it that this was the next in line to get the animated treatment. I was like, really? Of all the episodes you could do this thing? But yeah, I don't know. They mentioned Captain Avery in the episode, which eventually became a part-time friend of the 11th Doctor, but that's about it. So you probably haven't seen this one either, right?
I would say I definitely do not remember it.
That is probably for the best. It's definitely one of those episodes where every time I rewatch all of Doctor Who, all of Classic Who, I wish I could skip it, but because I'm a completionist, I don't. But let's move on to an episode I'm pretty certain you have seen, and this is our first Patrick Troughton era episode, Tomb of the Cybermen.
Oh yeah, this is the one we've talked about on this show quite a bit, I think.
This is an episode that was missing for a long time until it was miraculously found, I believe, back in the 90s, which was before I was a Doctor Who fan. So when I got around to watching it for the first time, I watched it in its entirety without the missing reconstruction. So yay for me! But yeah, this episode is great. I love it. I mean, it's an Indiana Jones episode with Cybermen, and it's like, I mean, it's a Tomb Raider style thing where they're literally unearthing a hidden Cybermen city. So it's just like, you know, it's like National Treasure where they discover secrets about an ancient lost tribe or an ancient lost culture and society, but it's Cybermen, so it's futuristic, and I love that. I love the different traps all throughout the Cybermen city. I love the Cybermats. This was the introduction of the Cybermats. I love the Cybermats. Obviously, the human villains with Kaftan and Toberman. I loved the character of Toberman, and also I love the cyber controller, and then the scene of just the Cybermen waking up and bursting through these nylon tapes,
the cellophane little
they're just going. And I love how when they seal the tomb and they send all the Cybermen back into hibernation, it's just the reverse of the same shot. It's like filmmaking at its best. I love that, and it's got one of my favorite Doctor Who moments of just the Doctor and Victoria sitting and talking, and the Doctor talking about his family and talking about his homeworld and his age, and you know. There's a lot of good stuff, and I love how the introduction of the TARDIS, like after the Dalek city is destroyed in the previous episode, the episode's kind of, I mean, it opens on Telos, but when we get reintroduced to the Doctor, Jamie, and Victoria, it's like just whoosh, the TARDIS doors open and the characters walk in. That's a great shot of entering the TARDIS. I love that. And yeah, I just love everything about this episode. So it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's great.
Wow, that's it?
we've talked about again. We have talked about this episode quite a number of times. Most recently, I believe, when we were ranking the Cybermen and stuff like that too. Because we did go through this episode.
So,
Loved it. Loved this episode.
And another episode, I don't necessarily love the episode. I just happen to love the creatures in it, but the Dominators. I love
this one. I'm not. I don't think I've seen this one, but I know we've talked about the. I know we've talked about the robots in it because I think I ranked them pretty high in the ranking.
The Quarks.
Video. Right.
The Quarks. I love the Quarks. Now, as villains, the Dominators are interesting in concept. Not so much in execution because, I mean, we only see them for the one episode. They show up here and there, like a comic book there, a novel there, here. But for the most part, they're kind of a no-show. But, I mean, they're servants, which are the Quarks. I just love the Quarks. I love their design. I love their voice. I love their usage. And just, I just love everything about these stupid things, as ridiculous as it is.
Agreed.
One thing I don't like are the Delkins. I believe that's what their name is, from planet Delkis. I mean, the name does it credit. It's pretty dull. I mean, there's that one guy who's basically like that race's version of the Doctor. The adventurer tries to go against the grain, as it were. Like the Dulkins are, I suppose, in a way, they're kind of like the precursor to the Time Lords. Boring politicians who sit around do nothing. And it's great artwork. I mean, great architecture. Their cities look interesting.
Yeah.
But as people, they're very boring. And I suppose that's kind of the whole point of the episode, is like that they're incredibly boring and gray. And then there's that one guy who's the adventurer who wants to who's tired of just sitting around doing nothing and deliberating. He wants to go out and do stuff and explore. And he's kind of a mirror into the Doctor. But the Dulkin. I will say that's one of the earliest examples of the Doctor eating jelly babies. And also, I think it's the second appearance of the sonic screwdriver, where we saw that it can actually do more than just open and close screws. But yeah, I think it's just the setup for the next episode, which is the Mind Robber, which I love even more. But yeah, so Quarks. Let's bring the Quarks back onto the show.
Yeah, sure.
Russell
more
T,
robots like this. You don't need to have everything CGI. More practical stuff, please.
Russell T Davies, happy birthday, first of all. And second of all, please bring the Quarks back.
Yeah.
That's all we're really asking. I mean, now we're going to talk about something else that Russell T Davies has brought back from the classic series, because we're talking about Spearhead from Space. Third Doctor's debut episode. I mean, it opens with a bang. Literally and figuratively. The meteors just land and explode with a loud bang. But yeah, so plastic is evil. Plastic is going to kill you. Can you tell it's from the 70s, this episode?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks like you're watching an episode of Faulty Towers or Monty Python.
Yep, and you're loving it every step of the way.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's the reintroduction of Unit. The Brigadier gets reintroduced. I kind of felt like they introduced Unit in the second Doctor's era to be kind of this niche thing, maybe like a one-off. But when the war games went in the direction that it did, and the Doctor was forced to be on exiled on Earth, it's like the new incoming showrunner Barry Letts was like, "Hey, I mean, we introduced this interesting concept in the previous season. Let's use it. Let's expand on it as much as possible." And that's why Unit has become this big, massive thing in Doctor Who that it is. still to this day.
Yep.
And what a great first villain. Well, not really a first, because I mean, you had the Cyberman already, but in living color, that is, with the first appearance of this new Doctor. What a great idea for him to fight living plastic, shop window dummies that just come to life and
Yep.
start shooting people out in the streets.
Yep, with the hand folding out or whatever, the barrel inside their hands and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all great. I love it.
Yep.
Looks like it cost about $40 to make the entire thing. It's great.
Yeah, because it's weird how the whole concept is that they're the shop window dummies, but you look at them up close, they look nothing like those dummies. They look like a man in a suit, in a costume.
Sure. Yeah.
But evidently, the Autons were just so good that they brought them back a second time. This time with the introduction of a new villain in Terror of the Autons.
Mm-hmm.
It's the debut of the Master and Joe Grant.
Yep.
And the Autons are back. And this time, a fun fact, by the way. So apparently, this scared people out of their minds so badly that they decided, okay, maybe not bringing back these shop window dummies ever again. So when they brought in the Master with the Autons back again, they tried to get a little bit more experimental with the plasticky villains, and it worked in some cases and it completely failed on others. Case in point, the evil chair that eats the guy.
Yeah, I like the chair. I like the chair. I like the chair more than that doll or whatever that was given.
Yeah, the stupid doll that just goes around.
Yeah,
which is clearly green screen technology. I mean, I don't think even back then it fooled anybody. The bad green screen. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, you got the doctors talking on the phone, and then suddenly the telephone wire just wraps around him and tries to start to choke him.
Yeah.
And you got the plastic flowers that spray this choking mask thing on your face. So yeah, varying degrees of success. I think there's a moment in this episode. It might be this episode. Might be no. Actually, I believe it is this episode where the Auton Man starts shooting the Doctor while he's driving in Bessie, and the Doctor runs into him and he throws him off the cliff.
Oh yeah.
That actually happened, by the way. That was not a stunt. That was real. In the script, it was supposed to be that the Doctor runs into him and he sort of turns the wheel last minute and misses him, and they kind of film it to look like he hit him. But no, Jon Pertwee literally lost control of the wheel while driving. He couldn't make a turn fast enough. He literally ran into the guy, threw him off the cliff, and he started,
I love it.
And so when you see him falling off the cliff on his face, that's legit. That's actually real. That really happened. And then the guy just walked it off like nothing ever happened. And as a matter of fact, I think it might have been.
They were tougher. That was what, 1970. That must have been 1973 or something like that. They just made it.
I'm pretty sure it might be this guy though.
Either that picture was taken directly after.
Yeah, it's either him or someone else. But yeah, so the guy literally got hit by a car and thrown off a cliff and walked it off. So maybe this guy's a real Auton. Who knows? But yeah, so I mean, it's got the debut of the Master, and it's got that. I love that scene of that ridiculous Time Lord dressed in like the old Charlie Chaplin lookalike.
Oh,
just
sure.
Pops out of nowhere and talks about. I just love so much about this episode. I can go on forever. What do you think? And we never even talked about Joe Grant.
Yeah.
Joe Grant's introduction. Oh, this episode's so great. What say you?
You know how much I love this episode. It's is it my favorite episode of Doctor Who? It might be. If not, it's definitely top 3. I love everything about it. I love all the Master stuff. Having Joe there, my favorite companion, so my favorite Doctor. What are you gonna do? I absolutely love everything about it.
Me too. Now, another episode I absolutely love, but not as much. probably because it doesn't have the Master in it, but it's got
Yeah.
another thing I love. It's Day of the Daleks. So hey, the Daleks are back after being on a hiatus for like what 6 years since the evil of the Daleks. Fun fact: very famously, John Pertwee hated the Daleks.
Oh, really?
He did not want to work with them at all. But you know, he did eventually, and he kind of got 3 Dalek stories, or 3.5 Dalek stories with them, and end of story. But yeah, so John Pertwee, probably his least favorite Doctor Who monster were the Daleks, and they show up. And how do they show back up again? So remember the Dalek invasion of Earth, which the Doctor stopped. What if he didn't stop it? What if that never happened? And what if there's an alternate timeline where the invasion of Earth kept on going and was successful? And then it all happened because a group of politicians died in this one explosion at a manor. So human freedom fighters from the future traveled back in time to prevent that from happening, but they stupidly, in their meddling, actually caused it.
Right.
Yeah. And first of all, not just the Daleks are back, but they kind of got a redesign, specifically with the colors, with the gold Dalek and the black Daleks.
Yeah.
I like that. We kind of get more Dalek hierarchy. And we get the Ogrons, which are basically I think the whole reason they were introduced in the first place was because they needed someone to be slaves for the Daleks, someone to do the menial tasks the Daleks physically can't.
Yeah. And also, Planet of the Apes was popular at the time.
Yeah, very popular. It was very Planet of the Apes inspired.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah. So yeah, very fun episode. One thing I will say, the Daleks' voices are trash in this episode. Garbage. Thankfully, they made a special edition of this episode where they added some new effects with the laser guns, and they added some new scenes of the Dalek occupied cities in the future. And probably the biggest addition that they added was that they fixed the Dalek voices with the Nicholas Briggs version. Nicholas Briggs actually voiced all the Daleks in this episode, and it is masterful without even having the Master in it. So yeah, anything else to add?
Nope. A fun episode of the Pertwee episodes. Maybe my least favorite, but that just means because of the strength of the other two, I believe.
Because of how good the other ones are.
Yeah, exactly. Still fun. A lot of fun.
And also, in the special editions, they kind of added more Daleks to that final battle at the end with the unit and the Daleks. So it kind of feels a bit more like an actual battle as opposed to 4 toy Daleks running around.
That's all they needed back then.
And now we move on to the 10th season of the show, and what a way to open it with the 3 Doctors. I mean, and yes, it's as ambitious as the title suggests. Not 1, not 2, but 3 of the currently existing Doctors are in this episode, and of course the last
2 of them even on set.
Yep. And this, of course, was the final appearance of William Hartnell as the Doctor before he passed away 2 years later. Yeah. And even without just the novelty of having 3 Doctors in the same episode, I mean, just look at the rest of the episode itself. We learn more about Gallifrey. Even we still don't know what the Doctor's home planet is named, is what it's called, but we learn so much more about Time Lord lore. We get the introduction of Omega and the antimatter universe, and we get the Time Lords in the CIA, the Celestial Intervention Agency, pulling strings behind the scenes and getting these three doctors together to try and fight a being so powerful that they can't stop on their own. And the Snark,
Yep.
the monsters in this episode with all the orbs, the red orbs, and the claw that shoots lasers. And they take the entire building of Unit HQ and throw it into a black hole. This episode, I think this episode is right up your alley. What do you think?
Absolutely loved it. Yeah, you're right. I think you're one of the first things I think you had me do for when I watching the show here with you was have me watch Three Doctors again. And so yeah, I'm a huge fan of Omega, and I think I've mentioned that before. I think we mentioned in the the things you'd like to see or whatever, and as Doctor Who comes back, I'm pretty sure I said Omega was one of the things I'd love to see come back. So yes, of course, Omega is great. I'd like to see, well, of course, anything more Gallifrey. I think they've spent too long away from Gallifrey. I'd like to get to know more of the lore, especially in the new era of Who. I think they have such untapped potential to go through it. But yeah, and again, it had like $70 aliens. It had a great villain in Omega. It had, like I said, the second and third Doctor together. Wasn't the first Doctor just like on the view screen or whatever, like on a magic carpet?
William Hartnell just could not remember his lines anymore, so he was just sitting there with someone holding his lines right up to his nose, and he was just reading it off.
Yeah,
and that's the only way they could film the episode with him, because he really wanted to be there. Just
yeah,
he
was in he had a lesser capacity at that time.
Yeah, but at least they got him there.
Yep, unlike in a couple of seasons.
Yeah, but yeah. So I think I can't remember the name of the guy that played Omega, but I think he nailed it right off the bat. Mm-hmm. Nailed it right off the bat. And yes, it would be nice if they could actually explore Gallifrey more instead of killing it in the modern series over and over again. But yeah, so here's another. First of all, first time the name Gallifrey was mentioned, and also another interesting new species that I wish we got to learn more of on the series. And it's something that we talked about last. Well, not me, but someone else talked to you about last week. The Time Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
We get the introduction of Sontarans and Sarah Jane.
Yes.
I mean, what are the odds that Robert Holmes can nail an introduction of a new great villain and a new great companion a second time in a row?
Maybe the most iconic companion too, I would imagine, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
To a lot of people and for a lot of reasons. I mean, the woman basically did 3.5 seasons. That was kind of unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sontarans, Jingo Links, stealing scientists from the future. Well, present, I should say.
He still looks like he got the idea for Jingo Links, but because he stubbed his big toe, he took a look down on it and went black and blue and says, "That's it. That's the next guy.
That's my alien."
Mm-hmm. Except for the helmet.
Yeah, but the helmet looks exactly like the rest of the head.
That's true.
So it's like, why even bother wearing a helmet in the first place?
That's true. Well, it protects their little porthole or whatever in the back, maybe. Who knows?
Actually, no, it doesn't. It's completely exposed either way.
It's for the aesthetic only. It's an aesthetic only. Unbelievable.
I suppose it's to look intimidating. I don't know. But yeah, really fun episode. Boba Fett's in it, by the way.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, the Archer guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We talked about this episode long enough last week, so last month. Well, not me, the Sontaran clone of me.
Yeah, you watched the episode, I'm sure.
Yeah, I watched it from my Sontaran prison.
That's nice that they allowed you at least some entertainment while you were shackled.
Well, they forced me to watch their greatest hits. What can I say? What can I do?
Sure. Yeah.
One thing they didn't force me to watch was Robot, the debut of Tom Baker.
Yeah.
First of all, I mean, I know you like the way the robot looks. I think you like this episode more than probably you should.
Probably.
To me, it's more of like Tom Baker nails this role out of the park first try. No questions asked. He establishes himself as one of the most iconic doctors.
He's his own doctor right from the start. That's for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't take time to ease into the role. It doesn't need his time to figure out who he is. No, he starts off as the doctor.
Yeah,
like that's something very few Doctor Who actors were able to do. And of course, he's got a great companion backing him up with Sarah Jane. Of course, he's still got the full support of the Brigadier and the rest of the unit, and a funny robot.
Yeah, it gets big. It gets a lot bigger.
Yeah, but funny. Who doesn't like a funny robot that becomes a giant King Kong robot by the end? And of course, the masterful visual effects of him grabbing Sarah Jane and walking around with her through London. I mean, how could they have made such effects back in the day?
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And just think of where they've come. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Speaking of the effects, like the Brigadier summons a tank to fire at the robot. And it's a full-on tank, right? It's not, a toy that was shown up close to the camera while the robot was far away. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, they had the full effects budget to bring a full-on tank into battle. There's another thing that Sarah Jane that seems to follow Sarah Jane like a bad penny. She's fighting fascists all of a sudden. These scientific fascists that want to control the earth.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, she always battles the worst people: fascists, Satanists.
Yeah, purists.
There you
go. Giant spiders, you name it.
That's true too.
And some of the other stuff that she fights are Zygons.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're shapeshifters who just crash landed on Earth, and they started living there. They have this massive beast. This is where it gets tricky. They have this massive beast called the Scarasan, where they need to drink the milk from that creature in order to survive. It's a weird fact of life for the Zygons, but I mean, they modified it with cybernetics, and now it basically became the Loch Ness monster for some reason.
Sure.
And so we get to spend some time in Scotland. Turns out the Brigadier is half Scottish.
Sure.
Who knew?
I can get it.
Yeah, interesting for an actor who was born in Egypt.
Stuart is a pretty Scottish name.
Yeah, which is interesting considering the actor was born in Egypt, of all places.
Yeah. And didn't even have a mustache. That was the worst news you ever told me on this show.
Well, when he came back in later in the 80s episodes, that was a natural mustache because he was older.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then the Loch Ness monster goes on a rampage through London, and they stand it back, and still somehow people don't know. People don't believe that the Loch Ness monster exists.
Right.
But here's another interesting bit that the episode introduces. So they kind of let slip that there's a female prime minister now, several years before Margaret Thatcher. Which, by the way, that whole line was
the Iron Maiden.
Yeah, but the whole line was ad-libbed by Nicholas Courtney. Like, it wasn't in the script. Just Nicholas Courtney just made it up that there was a female president, a female prime minister. I think that's interesting.
He's a witch.
Yeah, he's a prophet.
You say prophet. I say soothsayer or witch.
Or better yet, time traveler.
There you go.
Now
it comes full circle.
Yep. Full Circle is not an episode we're talking about today because it's not a season premiere. But The next episode that we are talking about is The Mask of Mandragora. Did you see this episode?
I must have seen it, but I'm not remembering it, and I am disappointed in myself because those masks look amazing.
Well,
and also, that's one hell of a dress.
Yep. Well, you shouldn't be too hard on yourself, because this episode's a snooze fest.
That sucks.
This episode is just so boring. I watched it recently on my rewatch, and I fell asleep so many times during this episode and had to rewind and watch it back to find out the parts I missed. This episode is just boring and boring and boring. It starts out good. It starts out pretty good. The Doctor and Sarah Jane discover a new room in the Doctor and Sarah Jane is walking around the TARDIS, exploring rooms. They find this new control room, which is actually the old control room, where I love the way the control room looks, with the wooden look, the vintage look, the stained glass window of it all. Yeah. They land in this mysterious green screen place with crystalline things, and there's this evil light chasing them. It starts out pretty interesting, and then they just land in some medieval castle, and basically it's basically a Hamlet story. Stop me if you heard this before. The king is dead. The duties now lie with the prince, the son and heir. And there's an evil uncle who tries to kill the prince to take the throne for himself. Again, where have I heard that before? And it's possible that the uncle may have killed the king, and he's got an evil
or not to be.
Yeah, exactly. Somehow they were able to take that concept and just make it completely boring and uninteresting. And I think we've already spent way too much time talking about this episode than we should. So how about we move on to, as of the recording of this video, the next episode that I need to watch on my rewatch. The next episode in line for me, The Horror of Fang Rock. So initially, on paper, it's a fun, filler episode of just the Doctor and Leela on a dark and stormy night in a lighthouse on Earth. They have to spend the night there. It seems like a pretty standard story until there's an alien being that lands there, and eventually you learn that alien being is a Rutan, the arch enemy of the Sontarans. And you finally learn what the Rutans actually look like, and it's a floating jellyfish that can shapeshift and mind control people. But yeah, so it kind of turns into a horror show at some point with people getting killed off left and right. And I love the line that the Fourth Doctor says is like, "Gentlemen, I have news for you. This lighthouse is under attack, and by morning you might all be dead." And he says that with a smile on his face. And there's some really fun moments from this episode. Like there's like this, as you would expect with every horror slasher movie. There's the scream queen, the one woman that always screams whenever someone dies or something happens and something scary it happens, and she's giving Leela a headache. So at one point she starts, they say, "What about this guy? Oh, he's dead." She starts screaming her head off, and Leela just smacks her to shut her up. Like, ah! And she shuts her up immediately. And so eventually they defeat the Rutan. They sabotage his ship. It blows up with this huge blinding light that blinds Leela. Leela loses her sight for a few seconds.
Right.
And this interesting bit about her culture is like, if someone goes blind, kill them, because they can't really be any use anymore. If they're blind, if they can't see, then they can't do anything. She takes out her knife, gives it to the doctor. It's like, slay me, doctor. I'm blind. I can't see. But then it's all just revealed that it was a temporary blindness, and as a result, her eye colors change, which is kind of to correct a mistake. I don't know whose idea was it, but I guess they said that they assumed Leela can't. First of all, full context: Louise Jameson has blue eyes,
Right.
and for some reason, the showrunners just decided that people from her tribe, the Sabatine, cannot have blue eyes because reasons. Like they thought it didn't make sense for the Sabatine to have blue eyes for some reason, so they just gave her dark contact lenses, which painted her eyes dark brown or dark or almost black-ish. It was a horrible decision because she was practically blind while filming those scenes. Like a lot of her scenes, she couldn't see anything while she was filming, but she always had to touch something or touch someone to realize where she is. So this whole plot point was just so they can have a sci-fi excuse to having her eye colors changed to the beautiful deep blue eyes that she naturally has. It's like, Louise Jameson was already a beautiful woman. I mean, right, even today, she's in her 70s. She's stunning. Why would you want to stop that by putting these dark contact lenses on her? Just let her have her beautiful, natural blue eyes.
Some people just can't get out of their own way when it comes to designing TV shows, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. And speaking of absolutely gorgeous and stunning companions from the Doctor, the Rebus operation is next with, of course, the first incarnation of Romana. Okay, so starts off pretty okay. I mean, a kind of a continuation of how the previous season ended with the Doctor leaving Leela and K9 back on Gallifrey, and then the final frame of that episode was the Doctor pulling out a box with K9 Mark II written on it, and the episode opens with him, switching the new K9 on and talking to him. You think they're going to go on a regular adventure, and then someone just takes control of the TARDIS, forces it to land somewhere, and then you meet the White Guardian. And he gives the Doctor a mission: go and search for the segments of the key to time. And so right then and there, you have a mission statement for the entire season. So the Doctor having to go around finding these weird, mysterious fragments and to build a cube thing that can control all of time. And he has to do it so that this guy right here, the Black Guardian, doesn't get his hands on it. Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant way of opening a season. Like, that is not what we were expecting, a full-on seasonal arc. I love that. I wish, obviously in the modern series, they kind of do that sometimes, but I wish we had more Doctor Who seasons like that, where
a quest.
Yeah, a quest. It's basically the Infinity Gauntlet. Before the Infinity Gauntlet was actually no. This is 78. So yeah, Thanos was around, but the Infinity Gauntlet storyline hadn't been introduced yet.
No.
So it's basically the Infinity Gauntlet before the Infinity Gauntlet was a thing. And it introduces Romana, and we like Romana. This first incarnation, didn't quite click with a lot of people. That's why they recast her with another incarnation. But overall, I'd say it's a very interesting episode. It's got one of my favorite lines of no one cheats the Graf Vindicay and lives. No one makes a fool of the Graf Vindicay and lives. Something like that. But yeah, so there's these two con artists trying to fool this royal person into giving up the segment of the key to time. So yeah, there's a really cool, fun episode.
Nice.
Did you see this one?
I think I have seen this one. again, piecing together memories of it, 'cause I haven't seen it in such a long time, but I must have seen this one. I've seen most of the Romana episodes, I believe.
Mm. And did you probably also see this one, Destiny of the Daleks? I mean, the episode opens with her regenerating. You must have seen that.
Oh yeah,
Now,
with
so
the just changing the outfits and stuff like that.
yeah, not just
Mhm.
outfits, changing bodies a couple of
Yeah, the
times.
body. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
like the tall one. The tall one would have worked too.
not for the Doctor apparently.
Nope.
I mean, just think of it. How if they're supposed to run from a Dalek attack? How is she supposed to go through doors?
What if she has to get over something?
That,
Think of
that
that.
still doesn't help.
Well, if you're taller, it's easier to get over shorter things.
I suppose. But either way, I just love the Ward version of Romana, and I'm so glad that they kept that.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh
interesting
yeah.
because, I mean, it's an interesting way to reuse an actress from a previous episode.
Right.
But yeah, at least they wrote it into the story. So that's interesting. But yeah, so this episode kind of introduces the Dalek Movellan War, which I wish we got to see more of on the TV show. I mean, it's mentioned in other episodes, but this is kind of the only example of it we see. The Daleks are so desperate to beat the Movellans, they go back and revive Davros to try and help him fight. And of course, this introduces the Movellan virus, which ends up destroying and killing most of the Daleks. And kind of, it's we're starting to see the beginnings of the Dalek Civil War start to take shape. But I mean, we're not going to talk about it today because it's in none of the episodes. Well, actually, it is in one of the episodes we're talking about, but it's later down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they reused the exact same Davros mask and Davros prop, but with a different actor, so who sounds nothing like Michael Wisher. So that kind of falls apart. There's a scene in it where Romana just is able to fool the Daleks into thinking she's dead by stopping both her hearts, which apparently that's something that Time Lords can do. Now,
Right.
apparently. But yeah, so the Doctor kind of teaches the Movellans.
Doesn't the Doctor do that as well, or is that after that? I can't remember. I thought that he did that as well, but I might
He
just be
didn't
thinking
stop
of
his
Anna.
hearts. He just stopped neural activity in the brain. It's not necessarily the same thing. But yeah, so the Doctor kind of introduces to the Movellans the concept of rock, paper, scissors, and they start playing rock, paper, scissors with each other endlessly because they're robots, so they don't know how the game's supposed to probably be played. Yeah, and it's not the best outing for the Daleks, and I think this might be the last Terry Nation episode. It's either that or the Android invasion. But yeah, I mean, it's the first Dalek story for a while, and it's gonna be the last Dalek story for a while.
Right.
Yeah. So should we move on to Tom Baker's final season?
We shall.
Yep. The Leisure Hive. You know what? It's all right. I mean, the episode starts with surprise, surprise. Stop me if you heard this before. K9 breaks down, and you have to try and find a way to fix it. Original, all right? Fix him. Sorry.
Never been done before.
Yep. Especially in this era of Doctor Who. Literally first episode. After he joins, he breaks down and it's just completely unusable for the rest of the episode. Which partly is because, well, this episode specifically is partly because of how John Nathan Turner just hated working with K9 because he kept interfering. Beside the point, they decided that the only way for them to fix K9 to travel to this planet where people can now enjoy rest, and it's kind of a sort of a rejuvenation center where people can just stay young forever. And clearly, as you can see, it kind of backfires on the Doctor at one point. But yeah, the Doctor has to dismantle the randomizer which up until now kind of kept him protected from the Black Guardian. But he just destroys the randomizer to help the villains, the Argolans, I believe their name is. It's all right. Like I said, it's not a very wow episode. It's all right.
Yeah, that's a good looking monster.
Yeah, can't remember the name of the monster is at the moment. But yeah. Now move on. Let's move on to an episode I'm pretty confident you did see. Castrovalva.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm pretty sure you have seen it. So yeah, the Doctor just fell off the Pharos Project telescope and regenerated. They're running away from the security guards. Adric gets captured by the Master because, of course, he did. He's the new Steven. And while the Doctor is still regenerating and having to find the Zero Room, which is actually the background of today's episode, the Master just sends him on this fake planet that he made up called Castrovalva. That's why it looks the way. And it unlike Tom Baker, it takes a while for Peter Davison to step into the role, realize who the Doctor is. I mean, he picks up the celery stock pretty early on, but that's about it. But yeah, so this whole thing was a deception of the Master, and this whole world was a fake. And you know what? I actually like that the moment where they find out that it's fake, and they start walking around from one place to the other, and they always end up in the same place, the town square. And yeah, I think that this episode's got a lot of cool stuff in it. I really like this episode. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it was a good episode. Again, this Master just wasn't. I know he was the Master longest. Sorry, what's his name? Ainley, right? Anthony. Was it Anthony?
Ainley, yeah.
Yeah. I know he was the Master longest, but I'm just such a Roger Delgado guy.
Me too.
Yeah, it was like, okay. It's like, all right. It's like someone pretending, like, to me, it's just someone pretending to be the Master every time I see him.
Me too. And he always kind of maintain in interviews and stuff that he always tried his best not to be like Delgado and try to do his own thing. No, guys, yeah, he was being a Delgado impressionist, and that's pretty apparent. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. But it's not long after he got that new body at last.
Oh, yes, of course, because that's what the Master always does. He always gets himself a new body at last.
Guys, we did it. We did it. We got it in there, even though there's no way it should have happened. We got it.
Well done, Stark. You deserve that. You deserve that.
Pretty proud of myself, actually.
Yep. And now we have another Peter Davison era episode. Arc of Infinity. Okay, so Tegan's back. We thought Tegan left in the previous season finale, and then she literally pops back up again in the immediate next episode.
Yeah.
Which gave a lot of opportunities for the Big Finish guys to do episodes of just the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa, and a lot of storylines in between that. But so Tegan's back now. And Gallifrey's back, and Barusa's president now. And Omega's trying to come back, and he tries to take over the Doctor's body. The Doctor gets sent to Gallifrey. He gets trapped in the Matrix with Nyssa. Colin Baker shows up as a Time Lord guard called Maxwell, and he shoots the Fifth Doctor a couple episodes before he's recast as the Doctor. Whoops! But
he had it in his head or something like that, and that's why.
I suppose. I mean, that's the bad example of David Tennant saving Peter Capaldi and then Peter Capaldi becoming the Doctor several seasons later. But yeah, this episode is kind of a mixed. I mean, clearly it's the lesser of the two Omega stories on TV.
Yeah,
right there. But this episode could have been good, could have been great, but it's fine. It's just fine, I suppose. Did you catch this?
I watched it actually, and I watched it not too long ago. I think I watched it as part when we were just going over stuff because I started watching more of the Fifth Doctor stuff after when we were talking about the Master. But just to see it and stuff like that, like I don't remember Colin Baker showing up. Like, so it's like, how much was I actually paying attention when I was watching it?
Apparently, not that much.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, but oh yeah, Michael Goth is also there. You know, the Alfred from the Batman movies.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, he's an evil Time Lord that tries to incriminate the Doctor. And he's the Celestial Toymaker, the original.
That I know.
But yeah, that's about it for this episode. And well, the next episode doesn't get all that much better. Warriors of the Deep. Okay, so Silurians are back and Sea Devils.
Yeah,
it's got the Silurians and the Sea Devils. Seems like a recipe for greatness, but this episode just falls apart. Like the costumes don't work, the sets look terrible. The Mirka is one of the worst Doctor Who effects of all time. No joke. They literally finished painting it seconds before they started filming. The paint was still fresh while they were filming it, and every time it touched the wall or something, it smeared paint all over the walls. That's why they had to film it in a very specific way, and they couldn't get it to work properly with all the people working the Mirka. And there's a cliffhanger of like someone pushes the Doctor over a railing, very Star Wars style, but he just falls into a water tank. It just, the effect, you can clearly see it's a doll, like a Peter Davison sized doll dressed as the Doctor, just
like a mannequin
and falling. This episode just has a lot of flaws in it.
You're selling me on this episode, right? You know that this is the episode I want to go watch now.
Yeah. Oh yes, and they kind of try to tie it into the first Silurian episode with the main Sontaran being the original Silurian from the episode from the John Pertwee era. Right. That you think he dies at the beginning, at the end of the episode. Turns out he's still alive. What is it, 500 years later, and he's seeking revenge. But yeah, so I'll say the one good thing about this episode.
Okay.
It's got an Israeli actress in it.
Well, there you go.
Yisra Shaul, or as I know her, Yaeli. So yeah, Yaeli, the iconic Yaeli from Halfon Hill is in this episode. That's the only positive I can say about this episode.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah, and with that, we are now done with the Fifth Doctor. Moving on to the Sixth Doctor. I believe you did see Attack of the Cybermen. Did you see it? With clearly the fat cyber controller, and the Terminator guy comes back again from the Resurrection of the Daleks. Somehow he got to work with the Daleks and Cybermen. Yeah, the Doctor fixes the chameleon circuit, sort of, because the TARDIS just transforms into a piano and to what is it called? Something that belongs in a church, I think. I don't know what the actual name of that thing is, but yeah. So the Doctor kind of fixes the chameleon circuit, but does an even worse job with it. And there's Cybermen there, and they're much like the Daleks from Day of the Daleks. They're trying to prevent the failed invasion of Earth from the 10th planet from actually failing. They're trying to undo history and actually make that attempted invasion a successful one.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they fail because the doctor is there. But yeah, there's a moment in there where you kind of see half converted Cybermen with like half of their body still human, half of their body Cybermen. And reminder, this is about a year or two before the Borg were introduced into Star Trek Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, people who weren't who people who lost faith in Colin Baker as the Doctor from the previous episode, the Twin Dilemma, we're still not sold on him for this one. So that tells you all you need to know, I think, about this episode.
Yeah.
And I think Colin Baker finally came into his own as the Doctor in the Trial of a Time Lord. But of course, the first segment being the mysterious planet with this weird robot. I can't remember what his name, Drathro or something like that. Of course, I mean, this episode introduces Sabalom Glitz, which is cool. It's the first indication of the Doctor using an umbrella, which is also a nice bit of foreshadowing, maybe even if it was unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
And oh yeah, the twist was that the planet they've been walking on this whole time was actually Earth, billions of years in the future. And of course, later in the season, by the end of the Trial of a Time Lord seasonal arc, you learn that it was actually put there by the Time Lords because the Time Lords are assholes. We already knew that. But yeah, this episode, it exists.
Okay. I like the robot.
Yeah, with fun robot. But of course, I think the highlights of this episode are the courtroom scene of the Trial of the Time Lord with Inquisitor Darkel, or well, the Inquisitor. I mean, we don't know it's Darkel until the Gallifrey series on Big Finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's her debut this episode, and of course, it's the debut of the Valyard before we know who he is yet.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think those are the clear highlights of this episode. I think.
Yeah. I've only seen, like, the last couple episodes of Trial of Time Lord.
Yeah,
Because
because
that's the
of
master.
stuff. But yeah. So I'm pretty sure you've seen this next episode, Time and the Ronnie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sylvester McCoy's debut as the Doctor, which Colin Baker refused to do the regeneration scene.
Yeah, but they did him dirty. They did him dirty. Like, I know you do, but
you can see where the guy was coming from. You can see where the guy was coming from.
Yeah.
But either way, he still regrets not doing the regeneration scene.
Sure.
Yeah, he regrets it. So what you're seeing is just Sylvester McCoy wearing a really bad wig.
Right. Yep.
And some carefully placed CGI on his face.
Mm-hmm.
When the Ronnie shows up at the TARDIS.
They get the height of 80s fashion in this one.
Oh, look, yeah, the height. Yeah. And I think Benedict Cumberbatch's mom is in this episode.
I think you mentioned that
as one of the Lacertians. Yep. Yeah, stop me if you heard this before. The Ronnie is stealing scientists.
Yeah.
From around the universe.
Yeah.
Trying to help this.
Like this one has Albert Einstein and stuff like that in it too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, the Doctor trying to fit in with his new life, with his new incarnation. The Ronnie disguises herself as Melanie, which somehow fools the Doctor for a slight bit. But yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff about this episode, I think. But
it's fun. It's not a classic, but it's a fun episode.
Yeah, it's not a classic, but it's part of the classic series.
Well, I think that's just because of the, chronological order of it. But yes.
And did you actually watch this episode, Remembrance of the Daleks?
I think we did. I think, yeah, like when we were talking about when we were doing the Dalek ranking stuff a long time ago.
Yeah, but did you watch the episode or did you
I
just?
think I must have. I think I watched all the Dalek episodes I could, the ones that weren't all destroyed. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I would like to say I did. I remember Ace. So
Yeah, so this is the episode where she dismantles a Dalek with a baseball bat.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's the height of the Dalek civil war between the Imperial Daleks and the Renegade Daleks. Um, using 1963 Earth as a battleground. There's a tongue-in-cheek reference to the first episode of Doctor Who, or rather, the first season of Doctor Who being on air while this episode is taking place. And of course, as you can see in this picture, the special weapons Dalek with the giant cannon at the front.
Yeah.
First indication of Daleks being able to levitate, and also the first time we actually get to see the Daleks laser effect is showing the skeleton of their victim.
Oh,
yeah. Most drastic redesign of the Imperial Daleks, but by far, with everything with the golden accents there. This is kind of the origin of the countermeasures series on Big Finish. A lot of the characters introduced in this episode have appeared in the show. The series. Oh yeah, the Doctor commits genocide. The Doctor unearths the hand of Omega and uses it to destroy Skaro, which inadvertently is the cause of the Time War. Yeah, good job, Doctor. Good job.
Way to go,
But
Doctor.
yeah, and
Doctor
Davros
Genocide.
What?
I called him Doctor Genocide.
Yeah, pretty much. Genocide Doc. Anywho, so yeah, the Davros is now completely gone insane and declared himself Emperor of the Daleks now. And one of my favorite lines of unlimited rice pudding is in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so lots of cool stuff. And some interesting Time Lord stuff. And oh yeah, Uncle Jeffrey from The Fresh Prince is in this episode as the guy in the coffee shop that offers the Doctor sugar in his tea. Yeah.
I must have seen this episode. I remember that. I must have seen this.
And now we're on to the final episode. We're going to talk about the final season premiere for the classic series Battlefield. Of course, Nicholas Courtney returns.
Look at the Brigadier.
Yeah, look at this reunion. So we got Nicholas Courtney coming back as the Brigadier. We got the return of Jean Marsh. She's not Sarah Kingdom anymore. She's Morgaine. Kind of a reference to Morgan Le Fay. So yeah, it's a reunion from the Dalek Master Plan with these two actors as completely different characters to who they played back then.
Right.
But yeah, so not just the Brigadier, Bessie comes back again. Get the Brigadier's replacement, Colonel Bambira, I believe her name is. She still kept on doing stuff on Big Finish until she passed away a couple of years ago. Oh yeah, guess what? The Doctor is Merlin, apparently. The Doctor is literally Merlin, with some storyline that we never really got to see. But yeah, so why is the Doctor Merlin? I suppose that is a story for another time. Did you see this one though?
I don't think so. I just see her and I think of Willow, and then of course that she's the third Doctor's wife. I know that as well.
Well, ex-wife, I believe they were divorced. Yeah, after a while, after a fashion. And she's one of the co-creators, I believe, of Upstairs, Downstairs.
Yep, 100%.
She did a lot. She's an amazing woman, and she's still around, and she's still playing Sarah Kingdom on Big Finish. But
Nice.
those are words for another time.
Sure.
I think I already know the answer, but what was your favorite season premiere that we talked about today?
Oh, you just try and pick between one of the Pertwee's ones. I don't know if it'll be the Autons. I don't know. Hard, hard to say. Hard to say for me. Probably, I don't know. Terror of the Autons. Probably Terror of the Autons, I think.
I mean, it's got the master in it. What's not to
Yeah.
love?
Spirit of Space is good too. But, yeah, I would imagine Terror of the Autons. Look at that picture, too. That picture is great.
Yeah, it's a great picture, and you don't even see a single Auton in it. That's how iconic this picture is.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I'm kind of split between Terror of the Autons, On an Earthly Child,
When
and
I was
Team
thinking
of the
you'd say.
Cybermen.
Right.
So,
Those are all great episodes.
yeah, very great episodes, very fun to watch and to talk about and dissect and
Yeah.
discuss.
I put
So
Robot up there, though, too. I really like that episode.
yeah, I'm sorry. I do not mean to hurt you. So yeah, where can the good people of the interwebs find you, my friend?
Oh, find me over on the Let's Get Ready Network. I talk Buffy on the Rewatchers Council. Those episodes come out Thursdays. We're heading into as we record this, some of my favorite episodes. Well, of the two parts, the second part is one of my favorite Buffy episodes ever. But we're talking about What's My Line, part one. The next time the show comes up, we talk English Premier League over on the Highlights Network. That's our uh, uh, let's call it the starting 11. We talk about the week in, week out results of the Premier League. Chelsea doing better. Happy about that. Arsenal still in the fight. Delia should be happy about that. I don't know how happy she is. I think she's more nervous than happy. But yeah, those episodes come out on Tuesdays. What else I got? I got LGRN After Snark. That's on weekends. Stanley Cup playoffs is going on. So we got the playoff beers going. We'll have an episode coming out sometime this week as well. Lots of stuff, 50, but always make time to show up here on the greatest show in the galaxy with you.
Yep, and I am grateful for that. And as for me, you can find me first of all finally back on this show on
Yep.
the Greatest Show in the Galaxy, where I talk about the Greatest Show in the Galaxy, Doctor Who, and we can also I'm trying to strong arm Soda into going back to doing Fun with Flags again. We kind of missed out all of last month because he was busy. I had a holiday, kind of took over a lot of our lives, but don't worry, we'll be back with a vengeance very, very soon. I'm hoping you can get him to do an episode tomorrow, so we'll see. But you can also find me talking even more Doctor Who on my YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek. I do weekly reviews of every single Doctor Who episode from 1963 all the way up to 2023. I'm pretty sure the more recent one I uploaded today was The Green Death, which means, you know what that means. The next one I'm going to upload is, of course, The Time Warrior. So stay tuned for that. I might do something for Eurovision next week. Not sure, but stay tuned if I will. Again, it's a maybe, but right now it's looking more towards the maybe not. So yeah, sorry to disappoint. But yeah, you can also check out all the other wonderful channels from the wider Benverse at large, such as Something to Talk About, Galaxy Geeks, Multiverse of Geekdom, Movie Lovers Unite, The Midnight Cinema, 8 Reviews, and In the Front Row, which is still not pictured on this thumbnail all these many years later after the fact. So, yep, this has been the show. This has been me back again as the original proper curator, And this has been Snark. And next week, we're going to talk even more season premieres with the good man, Soda himself. So thank you for watching if you have. And in, of course, the immortal words of Missy herself.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Goodbye.